They did not manage, didn't care to learn how to manage, and didn't have the humility to admit that when they were wrong, drove it off a cliff. And this has been you look at it on the other side and you're like, why in the world would anyone do this?
Welcome back to The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and I am here with Jacob Ransom, who is the owner of two painting companies and a marketing company called Ransom Digital.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us. So obviously the painting company's nothing special, I assume, residential or commercial painting, correct?
Yeah, residential only.
Okay.
For those. Yep.
And why are they two separate companies? My mind immediately goes, why not have one in multiple locations?
So one of them we are scaling to multiple locations. The second one is a partnership with a guy who's starting up locally. So our first one is out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The other one is locally here, and that is a different brand. So they're sharing a lot of resources, but it's under a different brand name that the partner wanted to go under.
And then Ransom Digital, what is your niche or specialty in Ransom Digital?
Ransom Digital was started out of a need. So I started and sold my first painting company shortly out of college. When I moved to Tennessee from Michigan, that one was in Michigan. I sold to my partners and moved to Tennessee, and there was a huge need that we saw. We had gone a lot of the different routes, but basically it just kind of was they call it like an accidental agency. So basically I just started helping some friends on the side while I still had my first painting company, because we were using social really, really well. It was working really well for us. And, obviously that is a huge need in the industry. There's not a lot of skilled people in that direction. I come from a background in that stuff, so it definitely was a easy thing for us to implement in that company. And then when we moved, I originally went to start another painting company, but I already had 3 or 4 clients that I was helping just on the side. This was at the top of 2020. So when we moved out here, all of the subs it was 2020. It was like the big rush, right? So every single sub we talked to was like booked out for a year. It's just something that was a phenomenon based on our location. So basically I was like, either I could start from scratch and start training people from scratch, or we could just go with the marketing company and just keep going. If that ever fails, I can always fall back on the painting. And it's been over 4 years now since then.
That's awesome. And so primarily Facebook and Instagram, I assume?
Yep. So I'm the expert in the paid media side of things. I don't even try to play in the Google side. It's also my opinion that the Google side isn't the main strength for painting. So that's where we spend, the 80-20 Pareto principle. We spend 80% of our time there in terms of what's working the best.
So my question, or the reason I reached out to you, was I connected with you through some painting Facebook groups that we're a part of. So I don't know, I probably, for listeners, I don't talk about what I do often, but I'm just going to give some quick context for your probably like, who is Chris Kiefer that said, hey, come on my podcast.
Sure.
But I was the marketing director for Webfoot Painting and Webfoot Concrete Coatings for 3 years. And I got, deep into that world of having to market and sustain leads, and the business grew, doubled while I was there. And we were opened up different markets and whatnot. And in that whole process, I'm an engineer by education, and I loved automation. And like from a marketing standpoint, I'd been doing marketing for 7 years prior to going to Webfoot. And, I ran a small agency, and so I knew the marketing really well, but I've always been like a very data driven analytical marketer. And so I think that's one of the things that was successful for me in that role. But what I loved way more than the marketing was eliminating the need for data entry in the business. So I, in my time at Webfoot, had automated out a whole bunch of different processes and just like connected all the apps together. And so in a nutshell, what I tell people is that at Boolean Automation, what we do is we take the 5 to 9 applications that a painting company needs to run their business that don't talk to each other out of the box. We link them all together using no code tools, and then when necessary, custom API calls and whatnot, and just eliminate all the data. So that's who I am. And that's how I found you and got connected with you. But the thing that stood out to me about you was this extends into your personal life as well. I feel like there's certain people that I've come across that do a great job on their personal page with posting and just like interesting posts that are thoughtful. It's not spammy. There's like I'm just looking back at some that I saw. You posted one on like, hey, I'm getting a package tomorrow from Jesse Eitzler. Guess what I got? Like there's you have this craft of like making something that like draws me in. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's thought behind these things. It's not just like my obligatory daily post on Facebook, but there's some time spent in there. And I saw another one of, planning out your goals and how 10x is this, it has really helped and help you clarify the waste and the stuff you don't need to do. That's what I'm observing or seeing in you. I'm curious if you could give me the background on like, where does that come from? Were you born with that? Was that something that you learned through trial and error? Was there pain that drove you to that? But yeah, talk to me about how Jacob got to where he is today, because you appear from Facebook in my interactions with you to be a very thoughtful, intentional person.
Well, thank you for the compliments. Yeah, that's all just storytelling. So ever since like I was a kid, that's always been my interest. I was one of those kids that wrote a lot in middle school and high school, obsessed with films and things like that, just in the storytelling idea. I went to film school. So that's what my degree is in the business side of film. So I didn't go in wanting to be a director or anything like that. Instead, I went in and I majored in the production side. Um, and then my minor, or like the secondary there, was in screenwriting. So I understood that I wanted to, based on the way I sought to understand the industry based on the way the industry operated. I understood the person who actually made the decisions, that actually was responsible for the quality of films and things like that, was actually the producer. So I sought for that position. I didn't necessarily care about notoriety and want to be famous and all this stuff like a lot of the other people there. Want to be a director, they want to be famous and work on cool stuff. I wanted to be a maker. Um, with that in mind, I actually went on to work on a Bruce Willis film, some other cool stuff, and I quickly found out that it was exactly like the corporate world. It was like, just grind for the next 20 years and maybe you might be able to do something cool. I was like, this is too boring. I don't want to do this. So I moved back to Michigan, and my cousin at the time had just moved back into town, and he had apprenticed under a master painter for the past 2 years while I was at college. And so we started a painting company together. I was like, I understand the business side of stuff because each film is basically just an LLC that you set up, and I love the marketing side, and we can bring in the storytelling aspect into that, which I knew. This is kind of getting to the answer of your question. Is like, um, the best advertisements are advertisements people actually want to watch. Even with my posting, for instance, that is the number one way we get our leads for our business, is through my personal Facebook page. Um, and it's directly correlated to the posts that I make. And while everyone else is just out there shilling their stuff, right? They're just pushing, 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 pushing. Instead, if you just start to tell a story and you connect with someone on a human level, you can make a significant difference, not just in people's lives, like your content itself becomes quality and valuable to people, but also um, it positions you and presents you in a way that builds a story in someone's mind. And the story I'm building is that I'm thoughtful, I'm an expert at what I do, and you should trust me with your stuff, right? That's the story I'm building in your mind. Does that make sense?
Totally.
It's kind of a roundabout way to put it, but yeah.
That's awesome. So I saw that you said that, like, well, I guess I would say, when did you like approach the marketing side of what you're doing seriously? Because I would say, from what you just told me, you saw film school, or like the film industry wasn't for you. You go into painting. When was like, how many years ago was like the decision or the intentionality of like, I need to make sure that I'm going to say it in my own words, my online brand or personal brand or reputation is going or is being built into the way that I want it to be, which ultimately serves the goals that you have. When was that like a decision to intentionally create?
Um, I don't think it was necessarily even a commitment to it. I think that I'm just so stubborn that I refuse to do it any other way. To me, it's the most authentic, and it's just what came natural to me, because that's also what I respond to. Right.
I love that. Tell me a little bit more when you say authentic and it came natural. What do you mean by that?
It's impossible for me to like fake it with someone. Right now, this became a challenge for me when I actually worked to grow a business, because then you have employees, and like you can't just be super, uh, you know, necessarily full front with everyone around you. And I've learned that over time how to better present those things. But um, I'm not one of those people that, and I know a lot of people in the painting industry as well as other industries are like this. They hate the idea of coming across as a salesman. They hate the idea of coming across uh, as like a lot of people say like a used car salesman or something like that. Someone who's just pushing stuff and creeping in on people instead. So I guess it also comes from the idea of like, I just want to be liked.
Mm,
And I know that if I come up to you and I'm just like drilling you, harassing you, all this stuff, like people don't like you very much. And if there's a way that you can increase your business while also becoming more well liked, in the marketing industry, we call this brand, right?
mm,
But on the
mm-hmm.
personal level, like where people actually like just enjoy you, that's the way I wanted to go. I didn't want to do it the other way. I guess
Yeah.
I just care about what other people think, to a point where I didn't want to destroy that for a quick return. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. As far as topics for today, I'm going to let you kind of pick the theme, but you had put in marketing, painting companies, and faith. Um, well, I guess I'm very intrigued. I'm a Christian. I'm drawn to people that willingly and publicly state uh, deeper things in life, like faith. Tell me a little bit about why. What are you passionate in terms of faith, and why was that something you're like, oh, I'm interested in talking about this?
Yeah. So coming from a Midwestern, uh, what's interesting I think about me is I've gone through almost every single sect of it. I was raised Calvinist. I was saved in a Arminian uh, church, and I spent a significant amount of time in Pentecostal churches. So like charismatic. So I've been exposed to almost everything in the spectrum, um, in terms of ideology and how to approach these things. And I think the one thing for me that kind of stands up is the idea of uh, abundance for me. So based out of my own personal stuff, coming up from a place with very very little money, um, the relationship to money has always been significantly interesting to me, because I don't. My wife will tell you this. Like I really just don't care about money, and sometimes it shows poorly because I spend poorly. But at the same time, if things cost me money, or money has to go out, I really just don't care. Um, but to me, money's always been a lever of showing more of who you are, and the ability to make an impact in the world around you. I went into some of the Jewish mindset around money and talked to a rabbi about this stuff, which is really interesting. But just how money is woven into the Bible culturally is really interesting to me. But the idea that we're supposed to be Christians, we're meant to be kings and priests, and we're supposed to be super poor has never connected with my brain.
Mm.
Like I've never been able to reconcile these. You know what I mean?
I
Um,
know exactly what you mean.
and so I'm like, well, I don't come from necessarily a prosperity gospel. Just like I've been exposed to prosperity. I've been exposed. I was raised in the poverty gospel, which was like money is the root of. You even start getting things like that, where it's like things start getting exposed when you start looking into it. Money is the root of all evil. It's like, no, it's the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And like
Mm.
you start looking to these these key things that are used a lot of times by people who are pressing one side or the other. And the truth is a gray point in the middle of it, right? It's probably a little bit more personal. Um, and for me, I've felt like a part of my passion, but also kind of my mission, is the idea of family legacy. And I cannot get around the scripture that says the righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And it's like, how do you get around this? It's in the Proverbs, right? How do you get around that?
Say that again. A righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Yes. So it's in Proverbs. All right. I
Mm.
could probably tell you the exact one, but um, a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. How do I get around this? You know what I mean? And of course, then at the same time, you have opposites, and so there's all
Or
these
I want to.
they
This is super
clash.
interesting. I
But
want to go deeper into this. You're saying, how do you get around it? As in, you're saying, I guess I don't see. That's a statement of like, yeah. So it's saying you need to be a good steward and get like die with like leaving your, the way I would say it is leaving your kids and they're in the next generation in a better place than you were in, is how I would do that. But what are you saying is the contradiction in your mind?
well, the contradiction is, the idea of like the story where Jesus says that it's easier for I don't remember exactly, but it's
Oh,
really
the eye
hard
of the
for a rich
needle.
man to go through the eye of the needle. Of course, then you actually look into that, and there's a door called the eye of the
Yeah.
needle, and you're like, oh,
So it is
that doesn't
possible.
mean what people think it means. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is possible.
It's
A
just
camel
hard.
had to. Now, actually, I think I remember learning about that was a camel could go through the eye of the needle, but it had to bow. It had to shuffle through on its knees.
Mm,
And so the whole point was a camel could go through the quote unquote eye of the needle, but it had to submit, it had to bow, it had to lower itself. And
mm,
so it's easier for one thing than it is for a rich man to lower himself. That's basically what it is. It doesn't mean it's evil to have money, right?
mm. Oh, so you're saying the idea of like, if money is evil, then how is it that I'm supposed to leave an inheritance?
Yes, these start to clash,
Okay.
right? And then
Yeah.
you also have the parable of the 11 talents. And it's basically the principle that he who's given an opportunity or something, of course, it could be a story, an allegory for multiple different things, but someone who's given an opportunity for something and they squander it or they hide it is actually like the language is aggressive. It says that he's sent to hell
Yeah.
where there's
For not
weeping and that
doing
he's
anything
sent
with
to hell, right?
it.
Meanwhile, the dude who took the talent and did the most with it, made the most, and it's literally using money as the example in the parable of the 11th talent. Uh, he is seen as the most worthy. But what's interesting to me is there's the core break is everyone else did something with it. The one person who didn't, and the person who hid literally was viewed as evil. So there's this idea of potential and being
Mm,
uh, I believe how much money you have doesn't matter, right? Um, but rather the idea of stewardship and taking care of what you've been given, right? So to me, I look at it like this: we were born in my opinion, the one of the richest nations on the world, right? In the world. In my opinion, the most opportunity, not just in the world, but in human history.
mm,
So you're born in one of the richest nations where even our poorest is viewed as like mega wealthy in a third world country, right? Even those who are considered poor in our country. And then also we have the most opportunity for the common man known in human history. This is
mm.
what's been given to me. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
So to me, it's like I want to be someone who takes that and I want to utilize that,
Yeah.
right? I
This
want to make the
remind
most.
I want you to keep going, but this was
Sure.
from as long, I mean, probably the time when I was in high school, I put together that so my favorite Spider-Man quote,
Hmm.
um to whom or I almost quoted the Bible, to whom much is given, much will be expected, but with
Yeah.
great power comes great responsibility.
Responsibility. Yep.
And that to me, I've always been like, oh, that's, it's right in line with the story of the talents and everything. And I feel very similarly of just like the drive and like, I guess it, to me it's like the motivation, or the way I think about it is just like there's a balance in my life of being absolutely content, or not a balance, it's like a contradiction or a paradox of being absolutely content and fully loved and appreciated for just me. Like I don't need anything, I don't need to prove myself, which is, I'm saying like what I'm saying the ideal, not that I'm perfect at this, but I am perfect and loved exactly as I am, and I don't need to do anything else. However, I've been given a lot and I need to go do the most that I can. you know, and but all the while staying detached and removed and not idolizing stuff, you know. But I do think that I feel like you are bringing up something that, in my opinion, is always frustrated me about not just churches but nonprofits in general. And I feel like the people that are in the churches or in the nonprofits that are running these, that basically all of a sudden you have a nonprofit so you can discredit business principles. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, you still have to make money. You still have to be like, I was just in a meeting at our parish council yesterday, and there is a speaker that's well known coming in to talk to parents. And they were like, you know, they wanted to offer it for free. And I was like, I am so against free stuff
Yeah.
because you don't value stuff that's free, you know? And how
Mm-hmm.
it's like almost an insult to the speaker to just give away tickets to his thing, even if a donor paid for it. It's like we need people to pay and be invested. And so anyways, I feel like it's it's an interesting balance, because I totally get what you're saying. And then I feel like I think that you're hitting on, I guess, is in summary, a big misconception that people are drawing a line of like money bad, less money good. It's like, no, I like that you drew a distinction of it's the love of money that is bad. Money is
Mm-hmm.
just a tool. And as a Christian, we should be finding out how to acquire it and deploy it and use it for the betterment of ourselves and our kids and our community and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I pray that like God doesn't give me first of all, you've heard the idea of like God doesn't give you more than you can handle. It's
Mm,
not in the Bible anywhere, number one. Right? It's not true. But the idea is that goes both ways, right? Um I the idea is that God will give those who can handle a little more, right? And if that's the way I feel like I've been set onto that track, because I've noticed every time I've done a good job in handling, stewarding what I have, I'm given more. And it's just like every single time, every year, it just compounds, right? And so my goal is not to increase my coffers or the amount of money I have. My goal is just to handle what I'm given to the best of my
mm,
ability. That's it. If I was given a tiny, tiny bit, my goal doesn't change or a lot, right? I've just noticed that as I have grown in my ability to steward um, relationships, health, wealth, right? All those things, I'm given more. Does that make sense? Like
mm-hmm,
that is the entire, I think, thesis of this and how it works. Specifically for business, for me, is literally just the fact that we live in a super rich nation that works off of like business thrives here. It would be very, very hard to do this, and I would say almost impossible to do this in another country. Like, good luck doing it in a country where the government owns all of the businesses. You wouldn't
mm,
have that ability, right? The
yeah,
opportunity that that person is given would be different from the opportunity that was given to us
yeah.
in a capitalist society. So I'm just making the most with what I have in the context of which I have it. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'll take it even a step further for myself and say this podcast, for example, my wife and I have about a year and a half ago, we were made aware of just utilizing virtual assistants or overseas talent. And, that like Happy, who edits this podcast, who does a killer job, like I am aware you're making me remember or realize the like for someone for in his situation or in his country to have a podcast and then find someone else that can edit at a lower cost to make it feasible for me to do a podcast, right? Because I'm running a business. I don't have time to edit my own podcast, but it's like just realizing, like to your point, that I am in a situation and a environment that is I'm given the opportunity to make a podcast and put out positive content into the world and impact people and change perspectives or whatever. And it's like I got to do something with that.
Mm.
I'm motivated by like I'm in this situation. If I was in another country, I probably wouldn't have the time, and it would cost way too much to hire an editor, because I can't use the arbitrage of just, you know, the way that the economies and are what are set up internationally to help leverage that. So I think that's
Mhm.
it's a good reminder.
Yeah. Sorry to take in this direction, but yeah.
And now a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1 to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get one person or two people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3 and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews. And these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode. What is I'm not sorry about anything. I think this is good. What else is on your mind? What did you come to, what do you like talking about? Where should we spend our last 20 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, this is the stuff I love to talk about, right? We could get into the tactics and things like that if we want to. But I think for me, I love the idea that the podcast is called Pursuit of Purpose, because last year I wrote that was what was on my board, right? Our mission is the pursuit of purpose, and to reach our potential, right? My mission has changed since then, but I'm wholly obsessed with that idea, in terms of pursuing your purpose and realizing your potential. And for me, based on what I've seen over the past couple years, if people just understood the opportunities and the ability, like just the opportunities that they've been given, in the context of what the rest of the world really has, I feel like they would treat what they have differently. So I work with a lot of business owners who, we just had another guy go out of business. It was 100% his fault. He just mismanaged. Like, this is what I've come to know, is over the last few years, 100% of the guys whose business struggled or failed all had the building blocks of a successful business. All of them. If another person had been swapped for them with that particular business that they had at the exact time, the business would have been fine. But
It's the
because
law of the lid.
they did not manage, didn't care to learn how to manage, and didn't have the humility to admit that when they were wrong, drove it off a cliff. And this has been you look at it on the other side and you're like, why in the world would anyone do this? And this idea for me has been illuminating the fact that the majority of people just aren't aware, you know what I mean, of what they have, and necessarily even what they've been given, to take it serious, right? And so I think that's also one of the reasons why people who come up with not a lot tend to do better, is because they remember, like, I've been homeless before. I literally lived in a car before. You know what I mean? And I remember that on a constant daily basis. And so it keeps you grounded. You know what I mean?
Totally. 100%. I guess I'm curious what this brings up, if there's anything else.
Sure.
I did a lot of mission work in the last 12 months, like personal mission, like what is our purpose? And then also a mission for Boolean, the company. And it's funny, my podcast, when you talk about purpose, the first company I started was 6 months after I graduated from college. I tried the engineering world, hated it, and started this production company, which at the time was just basically like Chris bought a drone and wanted to like use technology, and I thought that it would be a cool business to try. So that's what I did. But I remember spending so much time trying to come up with a name and a mission and like a tagline. And so it was called Sky Studios. Video with a Purpose was our tagline. And so I've had this purpose thing was there, but I didn't have a broader mission at that point, but that was just always kind of in the background, purpose, And then I started this podcast about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And I've been inconsistent up until about 12 months ago. Again, when I've like honed in on like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I called the podcast The Pursuit of Purpose. Like, I think it was a month into doing it. And I was like, okay, so the pursuit of purpose. But my mission now, which I have like distilled and been able to clarify, is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And to me, the thing that's motivating to me about that is because in order to be a champion, you have to actually win championships.
Mhm.
And then championing something is being the example, inviting other people along to do the same thing and pursue that together. And then the relentless piece is like there's always more. Like you're not like you don't get to 40 or 50 and be like found the purpose, all done, you know. It's like no,
Right.
you can show up differently at home as a husband with your kids, like in business, you can uh it never ends. And then obviously the pursuit of purpose is logical, but that's my personal mission. I'm curious, you said your mission was pursue purpose or something like that last year. Do you have a personal mission or a mission for the business that you could share?
A mission for the so we've actually started to segue this year out of Ransom Digital and much more into the painting companies, right? So we do have a mission for the painting company, which is it's kind of crude, but we literally explained this when we hired our PM. She's like, "What's your guys' mission?" I was like, "So our mission with our painting company is to ruin the expectations for homeowners, for contractors moving forward,
Mm,
completely destroy their expectations." Just ruin their experience with other contractors because they're not going to be able to provide the experience that we provide. Right? That's our mission. I want to destroy the expectations of as many people as possible. Right? That's literally our mission with Swift. With Ransom Digital, our mission has uh, become a painting business millionaire factory.
mm,
We want to be considered synonymous with the idea of hyper growth in the painting industry, in the painting world, um, specifically for those that are uh, painting entrepreneurs, right? Those are for sort of the mechanisms because these are just tools to me, right?
hmm
I think that's one thing I've done over the past is I've kind of separated the idea of reaching my personal mission through the businesses because rather um, I want to set them up to operate so that even others can I don't want them to be extensions of me. I want others to be able to champion it as well. Does that make sense?
hmm hmm
And we may adjust it in the future, but last year it was pursuit of a purpose, right?
Yeah.
And to reach our potential and a way of tackling that in. But that has become my mission, right? Which is to pursue purpose and reach my own potential,
Yeah. Love
right?
that.
Um, and so that just shines through the others, if that makes sense. It always
hmm
could change, but that's where
Yeah.
it is right now.
The one of you, I love the goal for Ransom Digital. My question, and this is just from my experience in working with companies, as you said, it's always the leader that determines the success of the business, right? Like
Hmm.
you switch out the operator or the owner, and the business is going to be a completely different organization within a few months because of the person leading it. So
Hmm.
I'm obviously you. It sounds like you crush the Facebook and paid marketing world. What do you do though? Because if I come to you and I've got $100,000 painting company right now, that's what I did last year, and I
Yeah.
want to get to a million or 1.5 or 3 or whatever it is, you know because you've stated it that it's not like you crushing the Facebook ads is like what 10% of the problem. It's a core problem, but I mean, I'm just picking a small number because the massive obstacle in scaling is scaling the individual and helping them grow internally, mentally, like giving them the resources. But what are you doing or have you thought? Because this is kind of, it's not like you need to, but in my opinion, in order to be the marketing company that is synonymous with hyper growth painting companies, you
Hmm.
got to have an arm or a training partnership with some other entrepreneurs that are really solid on the how do you manage a team and people and create processes and whatnot, because there's so much more to the business than marketing. marketing gets it rolling, it'll get the phone ringing and the leads coming in, but then you've got the sales processes and the sales training, and how do you manage the work and keep up customer expectations and all that stuff. So what is, obviously you're doing it in your own painting business, but do you have plans or already structure to provide your marketing clients with the other resources that they need to be successful?
Yeah. So I don't like even the term agency. We're not an agency. We're more like an agency consulting firm. So even at the very, very beginning, before I even knew what an agency was supposed to be doing, I was just helping my friends with their stuff. I spend the majority of time just consulting people and coaching them, but I'm not a coach. People ask me like, so are you like a coach, or like, because they'll hear from actual clients like what we help with, and the clients are like, if you're asking one of my clients what we do for them, they would tell you we run their ads, but that's where it just gets started, right? We also have a call center, and we'll get into that in a second. We also coach them with sales. We also coach them with hiring. We also coach them with operating the business and decision making and strategy. They'll just say we do all of these things, but then someone will come to me and be like, sounds like you have like a coaching program or something. I'm like, I'm not a coach. I have no interest in being a coach.
Hmm.
I'm a coach. I love what you said about the champion. I'm a coach in the way, this is, do not think I'm the Michael Jordan, but in the way that Michael Jordan coached those around him. There's an actual
Hmm.
coach of the team. I'm not a coach, right? I want to be a player, as you said. Actually, there's a better term for it now, which is a champion, right? That champions the team and is able to provide a blueprint for those around them in terms of what they need to do to hit the same goals.
Hmm.
Right? If you're working on Michael Jordan's team, you're going to see how he practices. You're going to see how he approaches things, and you're going to be able to ask him how he's doing things, and he's going to be able to tell you, and you're going to learn off of that. He's not your
Right.
coach,
Yeah.
right? That's what we kind of do. So, in terms of the actual practical part, we charge for advertising. That's it. And we charge for appointment setting. We give everything else for free. Everything else
Yeah.
is for free on top of it. We have the community. We have we provide consulting for all of these different things. So specifically, can I get into a little bit of like how we would actually grow a company
Yeah.
and how we would get in with that? So if you came to me and you're at 100K, which we've taken people who have been pre-revenue before, $0 in the bank account. We know the blueprint to be able to get you to seven figures as quickly as humanly possible. The speed in which you do so and the likelihood of you hitting that is completely based on you and how you operate, right? If your characteristics and your skills don't line up, it's going to take you longer. But we can tell you what you need to do to gain those skills, right? It's just a math problem. For me, it's just a strategy game. I actually refer to it as a game that you can do it over and over again, right? It's kind of like we've played the strategy game. We know how to get past the first level with our eyes closed. But if you hand the controller over to someone who's never played the game before in their entire life, they're still going to be trying to figure out. You could be sitting next to them telling them exactly every single step they have to do, but if they're still trying to figure out how to jump and how to shoot or whatever,
It's
they're
not
still going to
instinct
have a
yet.
hard time,
Yeah.
right? So that's as close as we can get. But what we do is we believe, and we have identified that the easiest way to grow a painting company is to first make sure you don't have to worry about acquisitions. So if you know, do you know who Brian Gottlieb is?
Yeah, I do. I actually just heard him speak at the Pentech National Dealer Convention in just like a month ago.
Yeah.
He said he was going to be on the podcast, but we're still trying to coordinate with his schedule. But
Oh,
continue.
sweet. Yeah, he'd be a great one to get on. So I had made a post talking about how you are, at least in the beginning, you are a sales and marketing company. If you have a painting company, you're not a painting company. You're a sales and marketing company. That's how owner needs to approach it. He hopped in and corrected me, and he's like, in order to really grow to scale, because he has, right, selling his company for 9 figures, you eventually need to become a sales and training company. Or not sales, a training and coaching company.
Yep.
Right? You need to become a training company eventually. And after chatting with him, it's correct. Like in the beginning, you are a sales and marketing company. So to us, the first step in the very beginning is make sure that your acquisitions is made up of 3 core categories. You have your leads, your lead gen, which is a sales activity, your booking, so your appointment setting, which is a sales activity, and your sales, of course, is a sales activity, right? True marketing doesn't come in till later, which is for us brand and top of funnel. But the first thing we would do is stand up to stand up a quick growing painting company. In fact, this is the exact blueprint we're using to open up our we're opening up a third location this year for our larger painting companies, opening up a second location under that brand. This is the exact method that we're doing to hit a $1 million run rate. At least we're opening up about halfway in the year. So we're going to end the year at about 500K. The next year it should do probably 1.5. But the idea is the first thing we need to do is get the lead solved. Once leads is solved, we then solve booking rate. Once we solve booking rate, we then solve sales. And from that, you can go to 2 to 3 million relatively easily, right? If you don't hit that, it's purely because there's something wrong with operating, right? There's something wrong with management and growing the business. Not everyone can do that, right? That's what I'm saying is I've had clients who've been given all of the building blocks that have been working, statistically are working, metric wise, and by KPI wise, they are all working, but they just mismanage them. So even if you're thrown onto or behind the wheel of a Lamborghini or a fast race car, doesn't mean you're going to be able to actually race it, right?
Yep.
They may not be able to actually handle the vehicle, right? That's the next thing we have to solve for. We try to solve for that earlier on, but yeah, the first thing we do is just I basically say I need to make sure that you just don't have to worry about leads ever again.
Yeah.
You can trust that you're going to convert a high amount of them into appointments because you have a system for that. And you have a system that's set up to where you can actually sell, which means you have to sell not based on price, but based on value, which is not how it's done in the painting industry. The standard for the painting industry is you sell on price. So we do everything differently than how most painting companies grow, right?
That's awesome.
If you can solve those things, you're now able to charge the margin you need to grow. For instance, our painting company out of Baton Rouge, we just got our numbers in for the last quarter of last year. And we averaged a 65% gross profit margin at a 54% close rate, about a $2,000 NSLI, which is extremely high. Marketing, like a 3.8. We budget for 10 on marketing, but we're just severely undershooting.
That's awesome.
We're not making.
What's the name of that company?
It's called Swift Painting.
Swift Painting in Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And those numbers are kind of unheard of in our industry. And anyone who is operating anything at those kinds of numbers, either they're stuck because they have over optimized. I'll even get into something else that's really interesting about that. They have over optimized at a really small level to where they've squeezed the juice out of every single tiny little thing. And they've been able to get the numbers to that point. We haven't had to optimize anything. Nothing is optimized in our company. Right. In fact, in December, our close rate went down because half of our leads that came in were from past clients. We did our database reactivation in December. Our close rate is lower with past customers than it is with first-time customers because we've developed an offer that is so good that we literally close a higher number of first-time customers than we do past customers. That is the opposite of what's talked about and what people think that they need to accomplish in the painting industry. Does that make sense?
Totally. I've got a couple of follow-up questions I'm really interested on is
Sure.
NSLI. I think, and I can't remember if I saw you post this, but it's funny because when I was at Webfoot, I didn't know the term NSLI, but I quickly found, like, I came to it because our sales team, we were trying to predict how many leads we needed. And so I was looking at what our close rate is and what our average job size was. And I had this idea of, like, what if I just multiply close rate by average job size, which, by the way, is NSLI. Didn't know it. And I was like, oh, I could just have this one number and then I could take our revenue divided by this number. And so I called it, this is the value per sales qualified lead that we get. So I called it VPS. And so it became, like, in our business, VPS, VPS, VPS. And then later I was at, like, a conference with some other sales trainers and they were mentioning NSLI. And I was like, hey, that's VPS. And I was like, dang it. It's like one of those ego things where I was like, I thought I had invented a new term. I was in my little silo, silly me. Like, it was so obvious that obviously there's another name for it. But the reason I bring that up is I think NSLI or VPS, if you know, if you were taught that by Chris, is the most critical number, because it's like, it's a measuring stick to compare sales reps against each other. Because before you had like, oh, I have really high average job size. It's like, yeah, but you closed 30%. And the other guy's like, I closed 70%. It's like, our average job size is garbage. You're not making any money on your projects. So it's like, if you use the NSLI instead, now you've got one metric to just say, this, the bonuses are paid out not on close rate, but on NSLI, and you have to hit a 1800 NSLI or 1900 NSLI, and you get a bonus. And then when you do that, it's the most miraculous thing, because your marketing team can say, what's our revenue? 1 million divided by 2000 NSLI. Boom, there's our lead goal for the year. It's
Yep.
like everything. It's like, to me, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And for the painting companies that are still doing, like, I wish that sales managers would get rid of close rate and um, average job size, because it's just complicating. It's adding two metrics when you could just do one,
Yep.
and erase all of that. And then you know that if marketing hits marketing, the lead goal, and sales hits the NSLI, guess what? You hit your revenue. Now you just need to produce the damn work, and you're good, you know?
Yep.
So anyways, that's my rant, because
Exactly.
I've gone deep down that rabbit hole before. And I think I love that the way you spouted that off. I was like, oh, I can be friends with Jacob now, because I don't have to waste energy arguing on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Anything else on that, or were you the one that said NSLI is critical, or like, I feel like you had said the most important metrics and you listed a couple, or maybe you asked what are the most important, but what would you say in your mind from a sales and marketing perspective? Is there something more critical than that?
There's nothing more critical than NSLI. Again, like you said, I also love NSLI because it incentivizes squeezing the most out of every lead. So there's also
Yes.
this idea in the industry that our estimates take 1.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
When I just said that, if there's anyone here listening who owns a painting company, like your butthole just puckered. You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
could never do that. Like, you're wasting so much time. All this stuff. Like who cares if your close rate's high? Like, you're not going to get enough through. Immediately, it's just all this stuff. It's like, I would rather have one sales guy do 2 to 3 appointments a day than have him do 5 appointments a day with even a lower close rate. Yes, okay, the revenue may end up on the higher side, but here's the thing: we're squeezing every lead that comes in. So you need double the amount of lead flow that I do to hit the same revenue numbers, which means just me making this one change does save us on, it does produce better in terms of sales, but it also immediately reduces our marketing spend because
Totally.
we can spend half the amount as you
Totally.
because I can make the same revenue out of a lower number of leads. If you incentivize for close rate, then these guys are only going to want to work with the people who are easiest to close
Yep.
instead of training for how to close the most number for the highest amount. That also means they're not incentivized to upsell. They're not incentivized
Yep. I 100% agree with
to go for
everything.
larger projects. Like, it's just a no brainer.
Yep. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So keeping an eye on the time, I want to move to the wrap up questions.
Sure.
3 book recommendations.
Okay. So you did tell me about this in the beginning, but again, I had these on my desk, so I'm going to show them to you. It's not because I prepped this. The first one is How to Fight a Hydra. Talk to you about how I like storytelling. Um, this is an allegory. So it's How to Fight a Hydra, face your fears, pursue your ambitions, and become the hero you're destined to be. If you want basically Jacob's mindset in a book, it is this, like How I Approach the World. It's a tiny book. It fits in the palm of my hand, and you can read it in like 2-3 hours, right? And it's an allegory of facing adversity, choosing to do what other people don't to accomplish what other people won't,
Mm,
right? Is that in a mindset and basically wrapped up into a book? It's an allegory, so it's a story, right?
love that.
The next one is The Mountain Is You by Brianna West, Wiest. This is a phenomenal book. This started me. People ask, like, how did you get to this point? I would largely blame this book because it is the subtitle for it is Transforming Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery. So learning how much we self-sabotage, how to identify that in yourself, and how to swap it for self-mastery is, for me, it's vital if you ever want to be able to pursue your potential. You're going to learn that the biggest enemy is you. So if you can start to master self, you need to first identify how you naturally self-sabotage. That book will show you how to do that. It's going to allow you to actually become a player in the game. And the
Love
last
that.
one, I love this because of the way we operate business, which is Uplifting Service by Ron Kaufman. It's a phenomenal book covering how the best companies in the world, if you want to learn how to make your company actually have the customer experience that is equivalent to like the Rolls Royce of your industry, if you want to learn how to do that, that book will show you how to do it. I heard a guy say, who's training his team, he said it's impossible to train your team to give white glove service if they've never experienced it before. Most people in the painting industry think that they're high end when they've actually never, ever purchased in their entire life or done anything with high end businesses. So they don't even know what high end means. They've
That's
never
a great
experienced
point.
it, right?
I
They've
love
never
that.
flown first class. They've never been, you know what I mean? They've never gone through a tailor in like a luxury anything. Like they don't actually know what it looks like. So how can you give that service? Uplifting Service is a really great way to, without you having to go do all of that, it's going to help like your mind come up with the idea of this is how the world's best operators craft customer journeys and customer experiences that allow them to be the best in the world. Uplifting Service.
That's amazing.
Love it.
Favorite movie?
It changes. So I'm a film student. So I have a top 5, right? At the top right now is actually the most recent Godzilla -1.
Is it called Godzilla -1?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Why would you say? I haven't even thought about that. Is that like really recent? How?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw it a couple weeks ago, probably.
Why can't I find? It's only bringing up the 1998 one. Godzilla -1.
Yeah, it just came out.
Ah, okay. There it is. I had to spell out -1.
Yes.
Sweet. So good movie. You recommend it?
Recommend it. It's a fantastic monster movie. It is, if you're a fan of actual filmmaking like I am, good storytelling, no fluff, no politics, like just a good old fashioned movie that is well told with fantastic images and fantastic sound design. That is a phenomenal movie. It's probably one of the best Godzilla movies. I'm a huge fan of the MonsterVerse. I hate the multiverse, but I'm a huge fan of that. So that's probably my number 1 right now.
Love that. And what is your recommended method for people to reach out to you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, if they want to get in touch, the best way to contact me is either through my Facebook account, which most people probably either are or aren't going to be able to do. The next way is through email. So jacob@ransomdigital.com.
Fantastic. Well, Jacob, this is super fun. Thank you for taking the time to come on and discuss faith and marketing and painting and all that. So look forward to seeing you around. And are you going to be at PCA?
I'm not. Our baby's due in mid to late February, so I won't be there.
Is this the first one?
This is my 4th.
4th. Nice. We have
Be
4
fruitful
kids.
and multiply, baby. Yeah.
What's that? Be fruitful and multiply.
Fruitful and multiply.
I love big families. So
I said, yes, sir.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jacob, for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, You can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.